Hi, everybody. I'm Alyce-Kay Ruckelshaus from Threshold of Hanani and the Widow Ruckelshaus, and I'm here to talk some more about overcoming anxiety, because I assure you it can be overcome. I am the self-anointed queen of anxiety, and I'm getting to be where it's almost overcome. I don't find myself in anxiety very much anymore. I do sometimes. Okay, I haven't reached the end, and who knows, maybe I won't till I die. But I've seen God really work in my life in this. And part of it has been through other people telling me that they're anxious. And so I try to help them. And in helping them, I find the solutions for myself. So that's been kind of fun. And so I've learned a lot about that recently, especially after my husband was killed in a car accident 2 years ago. And so there's been a lot of anxiety, and I've had to learn to confront that and to deal with it. So lately we've been talking, I think like 3 or 4 videos about anxiety as sin. So today I want to go 180 degrees, and I want to talk about a time when anxiety might not be sin, or it might partly be sin. Okay, and I want to talk to 2 different groups of people, and I'll identify those people in a moment. Mainly, though, I want to talk to the person who is experiencing that anxiety. So there have been a lot of times when I've been talking to somebody, to a friend, and I open up with them about something that I'm feeling worried about. And I say, I'm really worried about such and such. Okay, so let's just say my kids. All right, my kids aren't involved in drugs or anything, so I'm not using a real life example. That's just like something that a lot of parents worry about. So you might feel like your kids might be getting involved in drugs. They're hanging out with kids who you know for sure are using drugs, and you're seeing some behavior that might indicate it. So you say to this friend, I'm really worried that Susie is getting involved in drugs. And that friend says, you're not supposed to worry. The Bible says not to worry. That's sin. Okay, so let's stop there. All right, so let me talk first to the person who just said that. But I still want the person who's worrying to listen, because I want you to understand this so that you can be able to communicate with that person and maybe help them with what they're doing, as well as them helping you with what you're doing. Because we're supposed to be helping each other, right? We're supposed to be helping bring people closer to God who are Christians. So, and helping those who aren't Christians to know God, right? So with everybody, we're trying to reconcile them to God, trying to help them be reconciled to God. So, if you say that to somebody, if you say, oh, the Bible says not to worry, you're sinning, don't worry. Okay, first of all, a person can't just bang, stop worrying. Okay, so it's not a helpful thing to say. Okay, let me backtrack just a little bit here. I suspect that if you say something like that, God has given you a gift. I may be wrong, but pray about it. It's very possible that God has given you a gift of discerning when people are sinning so that you can help them be reconciled to God. The thing is that Satan wants to twist our gifts around, okay? And I've had that happen a lot with me, with my gifts. Satan tries to twist them around and often succeeds. And knowing that he wants to do that has helped me a lot. So that's why I'm sharing this with you. First of all, I want to build you up and let you know I think you have a gift, okay? Because it's really important that you are built up in that truth. But secondly, I want you to be aware that Satan is going to try to attack you in the area of your gift, okay? He's going to try to make you ineffective. Yeah, ineffective, that's a good word. Impotent, basically, because you're supposed to use that gift to bring people back to God. All right, and instead, here's what is actually happening when you do that. Okay, and you're probably not seeing this. You probably think, oh, I'm being good, I'm standing up for what's right? Because yeah, we're supposed to stand up against sin. But we're supposed to stand up against sin in a way that helps the person become repentant, not beaten down, but repentant, so that they can grow closer to God and so that they can walk in a Christ-like way. Okay, so what happens when somebody says something like that to me is I go, oh yeah, you're right. I guess I'm using the wrong word. I'm not worrying, I'm concerned. Okay, usually that really is the case. Sometimes I'll say that just to get the person off my back. But even if it is the case that I just used the wrong word, so I want to correct it, it sounds like, oh, I'm being all mature and just correcting it and everything else. But really what's going on inside is I'm all like, okay, I will never share with this person again, because they're not even trying to understand what I'm saying and what I mean, and they're not trying to help me. And I opened up to them to try to get help. Okay. But I generally don't say it to that person, at least not right then. Sometimes when I really pray about it and I feel like, you know what, that person really does want to help, they just aren't doing it right, you know, and I can help them, then I'll go back to them and I'll say, okay, here's what's going on. And I think you want to help me, right? And they'll say, yeah. And I'll say, but see, what you just did didn't help me. The other thing is, sometimes I will no longer share that with anyone, not just that person, but with anyone. So I essentially take my hurts underground. No one ever hears about it again, so they think I'm okay. But they're underground where they're just festering and they're getting worse and worse and worse. And that's because I don't think that there's anybody that I can trust with those hurts. Because when you share your hurts with people, you take a huge risk. And if I just shared something that I'm really concerned about, or even that I'm truly worried in a sinful way about, and I share that with somebody and they just attack me, or even what they don't mean to be an attack, but it feels like an attack, I can't trust them, you know, because they're, instead of helping me with that wound, they're just making the wound worse. Does that make sense? Okay, so those of you who have experienced this, you hear what I'm saying, right? You hear, okay, this is maybe why you're hurting, but here's what you can do about that to maybe help that person. Now, with some people, they really are just looking to condemn you, so don't try. And that's what you have to discern, and you need to ask God to help you to discern that, because it might be somebody who really cares about you and they really do want to help you. And so you can go back to them and express how you're feeling about it and how it's made you feel afraid to share with them about anything, and it's made you afraid to share with anybody, maybe, whatever is true in your case. And you can explain, you know, I used the wrong word, I meant concern. Or you can say, yeah, you're right, worry is wrong, but the way that you said it made me really dig my heels in. It didn't help me, it made it worse. Because, you know, if somebody's punching you, you're going to get defensive, right? So going back to the person who said, you know, that it was sin and everything like that. So how should you handle that? Okay, so first of all, understand that if you have a gift of helping people find the sin in their life and repent and be reconciled to God, understand what your purpose is in that. Okay, that your purpose is reconciliation. It's not condemnation. Okay, Jesus said, I didn't come into the world to condemn the world, but that the world might be saved. Okay, and so and that's John 3, like 17 or 18, right after John 3:16. Okay. And so you want to follow that same ministry pattern, and you want to help somebody. You know, Jesus, yes, he was like really mean to the Pharisees sometimes because they weren't looking for help. But if somebody's coming to you and sharing with you their worries and concerns and their hurts, they're looking for help. Okay, so they're like the woman who was caught in adultery, who Jesus didn't condemn. He told her to go and sin no more. In fact, he said, neither do I condemn you. Now go and sin no more. Okay, and somebody's more likely to not sin anymore because they've seen that love. So how can you help them? Well, first of all, I truly believe that what you need to do is you need to pray about it. If you see sin in somebody's life, or you think that you see sin in their life, pray about it and ask God what you should do. I have found a lot of times when God points out somebody's sin to me, that I'm not supposed to say anything about it. I'm just supposed to pray for them about it. And I may or may not hear later that they realized that they had this sin and they were convicted and they repented. Sometimes I do hear about it, but because I never said anything, they don't know that I even knew. So they're not likely to say anything. But sometimes I can see that worked out in their lives. It doesn't matter. Your job is to pray for them. And regardless, your job is to pray for them. But maybe God will put on your mind what an effective way would be to help them. So one way that I can tell you that often helps, and again, pray about this, but one way that often helps is to ask questions. And in the case of worry, you can say, are you really worrying or are you concerned? Okay, because those are two different things. And this is where I'm saying we're turning this around 180, because sometimes we're concerned. We're not actually worrying. We're just not using the right word. And it's hard to tell sometimes what is actually worry or anxiety and what is concern. And this is how I have come to distinguish between them and untangle them in my own life. And I don't know if this is true 100% of the time, but for me, it has been. So just like, I'm dying of thirst. Thank you. It's really hot today. And by the way, drinking something is a good way to stop and think. I didn't need to stop and think right then, but if somebody says something to you and you want to jump on them like that, take a drink, because that's a good way to pause and to just say, Lord, help me. What should I do? Should I say something or not? Okay. And oftentimes, God will give you a really, really amazing answer in that time. So asking questions is a good way. I was talking about the difference between worry, anxiety, and concern. So what I have found is that if there's something I can do about it, even if I'm not doing that about it, if there's something I can do about it, then it's usually concern. Where concern turns into anxiety is when there is something that I should do about it, but I'm not doing it. Okay, and we're going to talk in another one about anxiety, because God's calling us to step out of our comfort zone. Okay, and this is kind of that area too, so watch for that. But I'm not going to get into that so much today. Just know that if you are disobeying God, you will probably feel anxiety. Okay, so if something like, let's say that, something's happening with your kids, that you're concerned that maybe they're getting into drugs or getting involved with the wrong people. I should have chosen an example that I'm more familiar with, but I didn't want to say something that my kids actually did. So there are probably things that you can do, like get to know the parents of the other kids, or talk to your kid would be a really good thing, or have them tested for drugs. But God will show you if you pray about it. He'll help you, and maybe he'll lead you to somebody who can give you some advice on it. It's not always that he gives you the direct answer of what you're supposed to do. Sometimes he brings somebody into your life as the answer to help show you what to do, or he'll give you the idea, hey, call Teen Challenge and ask them what to do or something, or maybe take your kid to counseling or something like that, or go to counseling yourself. But anyway, concern means that you have something you can do about it. It's not completely out of your control. And remember that you can always pray about everything. And prayer is very, very powerful and effective. Okay, so anxiety comes when we have too much concern, which is really anxiety or worry, about something that we can't do anything about. And so that's something that we should be putting into God's hands. I'll talk about that in a moment. Putting into God's hands and trusting him with. But when we don't trust him with it, okay, I want to make sure you heard that part, because this has been huge for me. When we don't trust him with it, that's when it becomes sin. That's when it becomes anxiety, sinful anxiety. Okay. In my case, God has done so many things in my life. I have absolutely no reason not to trust him. I have no excuse for not trusting him. So it really, really, really is sin when I don't trust him. But I would also say that for the rest of you who are Christians, maybe God hasn't done those things in your life yet. Why not? Are you not praying for it or what? Okay. Because he does those things in our lives. So start looking for it. He probably has been doing things in your life and you just haven't noticed it. So start paying attention, start writing those things down, because they will build your faith. We'll talk about that in another video too. But you do have the examples of those in the Bible. You can read all kinds of Bible stories that are real life things that happened, where you see God working in somebody's life or rescuing them or whatever. And so you know God can do that, so you can trust him with it. Okay, so we all have, in a way, no excuse or little excuse for not trusting God. But the more that we notice, that we pay attention to what God's doing in our life, the more he'll build up our faith. And then we'll have even less excuse for not trusting him. But we will also have more to go on to trust him. Okay, so I've seen God just do amazing things in my life. And if you want me to share about some of those things to help build your faith, just write that in the comments. I would love to. It'd be so much fun. But if you're not interested, I'm not going to do it. So let's talk about giving something to God and trusting him with it. So I like to get something like a rock, because a rock is really heavy. I don't have a rock in here with me right now, so I'm picking up my pillbox. Okay, we're going to pretend like this is a really heavy rock. Okay, and it's solid. And just saying, Lord, I give you my worries, just doesn't do a whole lot for me. I need to do something physically to demonstrate that. That's just how I am. So try this, see if it helps you. So I have a place on my dresser where I have my Bible and a notebook and a few other things that'll just help me in my praise and worship and devotions and stuff. It's different all the time. And that's kind of my designated go-to place, because this is the area that makes me really in the mood for worshiping God. Does that make sense? Anyway, find a place like that. So I make that into, like, I call it an altar. So I take this worry, whatever it is I'm worrying about, my kid getting involved in drugs, and I put that on my altar. Okay. And I say, Lord, I'm giving that to you because I know you can take care of it so much better than I can, because I don't know what to do. I don't think that I have anything that I can do other than pray, and I will pray about it. But other than that, I'm giving it to you because you're all powerful, you're all knowing, you're all loving. And so I know that you're going to take care of it. Okay, I say all that to God, even though he knows he's all loving, he's all powerful and stuff, but I'm acknowledging that to him. That's really, really important that I acknowledge it to him, because that's what changes me inside. It doesn't change God. God is who he is. He's immutable, which means he's not changeable. Okay, but I'm changeable. And that changes me for the better when I acknowledge those things and I remind myself of those things and I acknowledge them to God. It's almost a form of worship. It is a form of worship, okay? And he wants us to bring our miseries and our anxieties and everything to him. So I put that there. Now, that's part of the reason I put it there. The other part of the reason is because a lot of times I start worrying about that. So I go back to my bedroom and I go to that dresser and I pick up the rock and I go, okay, Lord, I'm sorry, but I've taken it back. Please forgive me for not trusting you. I do trust you. I want to trust you. I believe. Lord, help my unbelief. Put that back on the altar. Walk away. Say, I'm leaving it in your hands, God, and march out the door. Okay? And every time that you start worrying about it, go back and do the same thing. You'll eventually get the message. Some of us take longer than others. So I'm one of those. But just having that physical thing really helps. Another thing that I've done sometimes is I've written my worries on pieces of toilet paper, and then I stood over the toilet and I've ripped them up into little tiny pieces and put them in there and flush them down the toilet. And I say, okay, Roto-Rooter God, I need you to get those things all the way through and get them out of my life. Okay. And I don't think that God takes that as disrespect. He knows what I'm saying, that I really want him to get it out. And I know that he has the power and the tools to do so. So that's one of the things that I do in that case. But again, just remember, anxiety is not trusting God. So anxiety is usually about something that I don't know what to do about, or I can't do anything about it. And so I need to give that to God. I need to trust him with it. Concern is something that I can do something about, usually with God's help. I still need to ask him for advice. I need to ask him for the strength and ask the Holy Spirit to just be in me and fill me. And then where that crosses from concern to anxiety is when we know what we should do, but we don't do it. So it's a sin in two ways. Okay, so If you don't remember what 2 ways, rewind this, go back and find that out. So for that person who jumps on someone about worrying, all that stuff that I just said is stuff that you can use to help somebody to figure out whether or not something is anxiety, worry, or whether it's concern. And so then you can help them with that and just talk them through it gently and sweetly and non-condemningly. Think about your own sins while you're doing this so that you'll have the humility not to condemn and be worthy of their trust. Okay, I love all of you. Thank you so much for listening. Pray for each other. Pray for me. Okay, if you're seeing this on the 12th, I'm recording this on the 11th of July, 2021. If you see this on the 12th when it's going to be posted, in 2 days on Wednesday is the 2nd anniversary of when my husband was in his car accident and was killed. And I'm really struggling, not with my faith, but just I'm hurting. I'm hurting. So I just ask that you would pray for me, please. All right. I love you all. Goodbye.